Good afternoon, and welcome to A Beer with the Old Growler. I'm the Old Growler, Pete LaFrance. Glad to have you with us. Well, today it is 5 o'clock, 5:01 to begin with, and it is Thursday, the 4th of June, 2020. And it is a day 79 of staying in place, or as we call it here in New York, being on pause. I'd rather be on my hands and feet, not on my paws, but we are paused, which means that the pubs, bars, taverns, and all other good places have been closed for a while. Although we have good news, I believe the 7th of July, we will be able to eat in restaurants. I don't know what it's going to be like, but we're going to be able to do it. The 7th, I saw that the New York State Restaurant Association published it, and I will put a link down below to where you can find that information out. But in any event, it's 5 o'clock and it's time for a beer with the Old Growler. Now, I have a growler left over from yesterday, and it's not really quite left over because it was never cracked open. I had a to-go cup. For those of you who were here yesterday and saw the to-go cup, that was a thrill. We are now allowed to have that. Have been for, I guess, about a month and a half, maybe more, here in New York. Similar to New Orleans, so it's almost like New Orleans, except it's not. Okay, I have in here, I know what I've got. Let me just double check. I kept the receipt, as I always do, so that I can tell what kind of beer it is that we are drinking. Oh dear. So that's part of the life of a freelance, is always keeping receipts, because you never know, you might run into the tax man someday and you want to have all of your information. Okay, this is a Montauk Wave Chaser. So let's crack on. It's a little bit hazy, I seem to remember. Most pleasant beer, though, but it's a Montauk. Oh, he tightened it up a little. Oh, just a bit of a hiss, more like a gasp, I guess. Anyway, stay away from the computer.
Is it a winner or is it a bum?
Well, it's as flat as the Mojave Desert. That's what that is. Well, not quite as flat. Yeah. All right. Panhandle of Texas. Cheers. Hey, Dave. Peace, my man. Wow. That's not bad. Ice cold and refreshing. Got a little bit of a head. It wasn't, as I say, it wasn't opened up yesterday. But thanks to the kids at the Henry Street Ale House, we have our beer of the day. Greetings, Mary. Good to see you. Cheers. Well, I didn't get a chance to get a fresh growler. There was a demonstration on Cadman Plaza, and one of the family members was there. And then, of course, they went across the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was, I must say, a very noisy, but it was incredibly peaceful. And there was the police which were on the federal courthouse. We have a federal courthouse that's just on the other side of essentially the Brooklyn Bridge entrance. And they were the trucks, the vans were there, but the people that were out there, I believe one or two of them did take a knee, and so it was. I like to think it was Brooklyn. So to Brooklyn. All right. Well, for those of you who have been here for a while, you know the drill. For those of you who are just joining us, this is the reason for the Old Growler is because having been an author, writing 2 books on beer, one Beer Basics and the other Cooking and Eating with Beer, and have for the last 2, I'd say 35 years altogether, 40 if you count freelancing, covered particularly the beer industry, but also the hospitality industry, bars, taverns, and that sort of thing, restaurants. And so this particular close down has been a little bit stifling. And so what I've done is put together a bit of a daily presentation. And the first part of the presentation is always a beer tasting. If you take a look at the listings, at the playlist of this channel, you can see that there's two sets of beer tastings. One, I think, is called the kitchen table tastings, and the other are tastings at the Henry Street Ale House. And those are the ones that are probably the most interesting. The kitchen table, well, in any event, take a look at some of those, and you will see what we did. What we used to do before the close down was we would take a look at, oh, let me grab this one here. This is a good one. Okay. This is, we'd grab a bottle or a can of beer, and we would take a look at the label. And this one is from Founders, a brewing company, and they are in, I should know, I've had many of their beers. Oh, come on. Oh, gee, please, Peter, you can't be that blind. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Come on. You can find it. It's over here. Grand Rapids, Michigan. Okay. Well, that's just one, so you know at least where the beer comes from. And then we take a look at the label. Look at the style, you know, kind of a neat. And this one is Más Agave, and it's got a skeletal hand holding an orb. And then we would take a look at it, you know, and figure out what the three of us at the ale house, Jerry Scott, the bartender and manager, and myself, and Jim Bennis, a regular, and we would always have some tourists come in, because it's as I was mentioning, we're at the end of the Brooklyn Bridge, and if you have any kind of social media app as far as finding watering holes, that place was open. It opened at noon, and so that was one of the few places in the neighborhood that opened at noon. So we would get tourists drop by, and of course they were invited to taste the beers, and it was always a lot of fun. So take a look at those presentations, and you'll see how that was pretty much how we did it. And at the very end, they either made expectations and they got a thumbs up, or they didn't make expectations and they got a thumbs down. And so that is the beer tasting that we're going to be doing and have been doing for the last, believe it or not, 54 days in a row, although I did take off one day, Memorial Day. Okay, the second part, if you hang around it later, is, as I mentioned, I have been a journalist covering the malt beverage industry, beer, and the hospitality industry, pubs, bars, taverns, and watering holes. And the second part of the presentation, I get to tell a war story, either a place that I've been, or someone I've met, or an event that happened, or a tasting that I was at, or a particular beer I tried that had an influence on me as a professional barfly, and has been something that I've certainly learned and would like to pass on. So anyways, well, I wouldn't pass on it, but I would, never mind. Today, we're going to try, yes, here it is. This is the sister of, or the brother, or the cousin, the relative, or it's by Founders, the Founders Brewing Company, and we know where to find where they are from. It is, of course, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they have a nice, it's raised on the side of the bottle there. That's kind of good. So it's interesting that they pay attention to their bottles. I'm noting that, and we have, as you see there, it's kind of a funky the skeletal hand holding a globe. And it's kind of adobe looking. I'll give it Mexican, sure, why not? And it has, let's see, it says barrel aged. Okay, so when beers are aged in barrels, they pick up, number one, the color, because usually the barrel is charred for one reason or another. And if not, if it's a fresh oak, or is I believe it's called Limousin, then it's not going to pick up any color, but it will pick up some sugars. And that is because of the makeup of the sweat of the oak, I do believe. Okay, now it says Más Agave. Now, I've lived in Brooklyn for 30 something years, 34 years, and I've picked up a little Spanish, and I believe that means Más Agave means much uh, or more agave, more agave. And having familiar with mezcal, I don't really know what agave is. Okay, now it says an Imperial Gose style ale brewed with grapefruit and agave, aged in tequila barrels. Okay, and let's see, is there anything on the back? Yes, a little bit more information. The cocktail inspiration lives on. Our Imperial Gose is brewed with agave and sea salt before being aged in tequila barrels. But it doesn't end there. Once it's pulled from the barrels, it gets a dose of fresh grapefruit juice to ramp up the tanginess and to pay homage to our other favorite tequila-based cocktail, the Paloma. Sweet, salty, and mouth-puckeringly delicious. Más Agave Grapefruit. And it was packaged on April 10th of this year. Greetings. Good to see you, Monica. You've just heard all about the taste of the day. Founders Más Agave. Now, they sent me this. I did not buy that. Well, they sent me this without a cheat sheet, so I didn't have an idea of what it is all about. They also sent me two of them. Now, sometimes when a brewery will send me a sample, they'll send me two of the same kind. That way I can have one for myself and one for the tasting. Well, I didn't read the label. It's observant. And that's why we have the Más Agave and the Más Agave Grapefruit. And I decided to do the Más Agave Grapefruit today. I probably should have done it backwards, but not. But anyways, we've gone through the label. What I'm going to expect? Well, a tequila flavored beer, essentially. That's what I'm looking for. A tequila flavor, and whether it's cloudy or not, please don't make it cloudy. I have a semi-aversion to cloudiness. It's a beautiful day today, actually, so I have no aversion to today. All right. Once again, we're pouring it into a white wine glass because that way all of the beers that we sample have the same advantage or disadvantage as far as being effervescent or giving off aromas if they're ales, or having a certain, especially when you hold it by the stem, if you hold a glass with your hand, it warms it up a little bit sometimes. And so Pilsners in particular would want to be a little chilled. So it keeps the hand from warming the glass. That's why I do that. All right, now, there was something else that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, the fact that we're doing, the fact that we're doing an agave beer fits in rather nicely for today because it is, it's in the 80s out there, or approaching the 80s. So it is summertime, which is also the reason that I'm not wearing a turtleneck or my famous fedora. I have my alma mater's chapeau on today. So let's crack this open. And as I said, I'm expecting a tequila flavored beer. But let's see what happens. Oh, with the grapefruit. Why didn't they just put Cascade hops in there? Well, never mind, Peter. All right. All right, Peter, you just proved yourself wrong, didn't you? You said a tequila barrel would not give it any color. Ding dong, I'm wrong. So I'm not going to count it against it. No, sir. That was my mistake. All right. It is. The cloudy might be. Oh, well, I don't think it's deliberately meant to be cloudy. I think it might just be that it was chilled a little bit, and it's not to be chilled. Oh, I forgot to look for the alcohol content. Well, we'll figure it out later. Anyways. Boy, that's an odd. It's an odd aroma. It's neither hop, floral, or roasted malty type stuff. It's a mystery. All right. Well, Peter, you're gonna have to sip it, quaff it, sip it, quaff. Yeah, here we go. Well, It has an agave pucker to it, definitely. The grapefruit, I always associate agave with tequila, of course, and tequila with salt. And there is sea salt in here, so it is salty. It is dry, which means that it's not sweet, and it there's a tropical sweetness to it. It is a sweetness, definitely. This is not a bitter beer by any stretch of the imagination. And despite the chill haze, what I'm assuming is a chill haze, I would chill this right down a little bit more. This isn't a beer that warms easily, because then it would get, and it has already got to be a little bit of a play. However, it does have that nice salty tang of the agave and the sea salt. A beautiful cleansing of the palate. So I would say this is a toughie, because it wasn't what I expected. So it didn't meet expectations, but it was what I expected, so that it meets expectations. Okay, it wasn't what I expected, because I expected it to be blonde. But that was my mental mistake, because I forgot, again, that the casks will give it some color. My bad. So we can't take that on there. But it comes down to the flavor. And the flavor is exactly what I would expect. I think I might have expected it to be a little warmer. By warmer, I mean more alcohol content, or seemingly alcohol content. Yeah, you get that away from the computer. Bad boy. Jeez, it's a lapse today. See if it says, usually where the content is there. Come on, Peter. It's right there, Doofus. It's right there in the corner. All you've got to do is read it. All right, read it to the people. 9.7% alcohol by volume. There's your answer, Peter. This is not a session beer. No, it's not. That's probably why it didn't throw such, when I say throw, I mean create such a head of foam, because high alcohol beers have a tendency not to have much of a head. They will go to your head, but it doesn't. Okay. Now, as far as the grapefruit goes, there might be a little on what I call the pre-finish. It's that bit where it's still in your taste receptors in your mouth, and it's just before the flavor goes away. It might be. It's very light though, so well, why brag about it? Aha, because we haven't tried the plain Más Agave. So that's probably we'll do that tomorrow. You know, that's tomorrow. We're going to have a celebratory beer tomorrow. I have to do it. I mean, it's the 55th version, and so it's time to do a celebration. So that's what we're going to do. We'll try the Más Agave. We'll stay in the summertime mode. But does it meet expectations? Wow. Come on, Peter. Later on, you're going to put this in a playlist, and it's going to have to be edited down to at least, 10 minutes. You've gone on for a long time on this one. I'm going to say yes. Yes, and and that's, as I say, there was one my bad, but the rest of it was yes. Particularly now that I know that it is a high alcohol beer, and it makes sense for some of the flavors that I was getting that I wasn't quite getting. Well, yep, that's High alcohol beers don't take well to warm. They need to be chilled. Similar to a white wine, essentially. And when I say chilled, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, cellar temperature, but I would take it down a little bit more. I might go to a lager chill, 40 something. But yes, it met expectations. That's it. Let me put that right here. Let's get this done. Did Founders Más Agave Grapefruit meet expectations? Yes, it did. Okay. And I'm hoping that, here's hoping that all of your beers meet expectations. All right. Now, I've let usually I flip through this script, as you've noticed in the past, but I took a little bit of a trip today. So I didn't take a trip, but it was that I just decided to see if I could deal with that. I mean, after 54 times, I would suppose to give, no, well, never mind. But anyhow, I find a cheat sheet. Más Agave Grapefruit. Drawing its origins from the Paloma, we've already hit that. Más Agave Grapefruit is an Imperial Gose. When anybody puts Imperial, it means high alcohol. Brewed with agave and sea salt before being aged in tequila barrels, 9.7. Available in 4-packs of 12-ounce bottles on draft beginning on April 15th. We're into June. At the Grand Rapids Taproom, April 16th, Detroit Taproom, and be shipped out in an entire distribution network by April 13th. Please note that it will not be available on draft in Utah. So for those of you in Utah, well, unfortunately, you won't be able to get it. And it says here, Más Agave. Now this is the one we're going to be trying tomorrow. We'll also return to the Barrel Age series lineup in tandem with Más Agave Grapefruit. It will be available in 4-packs, 12-ounce bottles on draft beginning on April 8th in the Grand Rapids Taproom and 9 in the Detroit Taproom. Now, I'm willing to bet that none of that happened, but I'm going to get in touch with these kids. I've had their beers before, and I met their brewer, and I'll put the link to a fun interview that I did with these kids and down in the information box. But that gives you a little more background. Okay. For those of you who have stuck around, it's time for my life as a professional barfly. And I have to decide which beer to drink. I'm going to go with the pint. It's lighter and wow. When you go from an experimental beer to nah.
Oh, the taste buds have to get readjusted, senor.
I know. I do not understand this beer. Give me a new one. Nah, we're going to have to drink this one, guys.
Oh, thank you. We're reacquainted.
Now, let's get to it. This is, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I wrote this a while ago, and it was in one of my blogs way back. And it does go way back because I'm going to talk about McSorley's Old Ale House and Matty Marr, the fellow that owned it, the late Matty Marr. He died, I guess, maybe about a year ago. So, I would like very much, instead of just trusting memory, to actually read this to you kids, if you don't mind. And if you do mind, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. This was, it was a chance encounter in a way. One of the more interesting interviews I ever did was with the late Matty Marr, the owner of McSorley's Old Ale House in New York City. The place had been featured in many books, movies, videos, and feature presentations, so I won't bore you with the history. The interview, however, is another story. And here it is. Matthew Matty Marr, present owner, well, the late Matty Marr, once owner of McSorley's, handed a stack of mail to the bartender. It was a late afternoon, and only 3 other people were standing at the bar. At that time, standing at the bar at McSorley's on a Wednesday afternoon was my station in life. On this particular afternoon, I'd been talking about the history of McSorley's with the bartender when Matty stepped up with a mail. Being a social sort and knowing who he was, I had just asked him how it was he ended up at McSorley's. Here, with only slight exaggeration and interpretation, I present the story as he told me. Now, I'm going to take liberties. Hey, when I was a young lad in Ireland, my father had a farm, a large family. It was tradition at the time my place in line was reserved for the priesthood. So off I went, sent to the seminary. After 2 or 3 years, I began asking the Holy Fathers how I would know if I had been called to be a priest. They always replied, "You'll hear it calling." Well, I was a good lad and always kept my ears peeled to hear the calling. It was one fine summer day when I was on my way home from seminary school to my father's farm. Now, his farm is situated in such a way that the road borders part of it, and other part is bordered by a fine small river. Now, every summer, the tinkers would come into town, and they'd camp along the river. And it was this fine summer afternoon that I got down from the bus and began walking towards home. It seemed that at this very same time, a group of young ladies traveling with the tinkers had decided to go bathe in the river. Now that was what I heard. I heard their beautiful voices and laughter, and I knew exactly what it was. It was a calling, a powerful calling. And that is why I ended up here. You see, it just wasn't in me to be a priest. Now, has got to have been my favorite interview of all times. I've interviewed Fritz Maytag. I've interviewed Augie Bush III, and numbers of chefs. But I'd have to say that Matty Maher was the most fun. He loved the horses. He loved horse racing, and most of all, he loved life. And he loved telling stories. Oh, he loved telling stories. And I'm sure someone's out there. Please, if you're out there and it happens to you, tell me in the comments box, because I want to know that it's important that I'm almost convinced, and you can't be, I will never be totally convinced of anything because I've been in bars, but I'm almost totally convinced that I'm one of the few people that Matty Maher ever bought a round for. So if you've been in McSorley's many years ago and ran into Matty, if you had a round bought for you by Matty, let me know. And the other, Pepe the bartender, boy, I believe he's still there on Saturday. I'm gonna have to, oh geez, shit. I was about to say, yeah, I'd like to go in this Saturday and see him. And you all know why I reacted. Well, in any event, I see it's getting towards time. I want to thank everybody who watched, and if you're new and managed to go all the way to the end here with me, I would really appreciate if you would subscribe. That would be really cool. A thumbs up would be appreciated, and certainly leave a comment down in the comments box. It's something that it really is important, because sometimes I wonder if anyone's out there. Kind of like it was Burgess Meredith in one of the old Twilight Zones. He was a librarian, I think it was, and he wanted to be able to take time to read, and the life was just so terrible he just couldn't read. And apparently there was some kind of, I think, nuclear disaster or something. And it ended up that he'd been down in the bowels of the library and survived it. And when he came out, he was just so happy that he could read all of the books, and then his glasses fell off and broke and he couldn't read. And so be careful what you ask for. You might get it. And so I'm simply going to ask for tomorrow. Today's Thursday? Yes. tomorrow, Friday, we'll stop in and into the ale house. Oh, and pick up a beer. Oh yeah. We need to definitely pick up a new beer. That's for sure. Well, in any event, thanks all for watching, and please take care of yourselves. And I look forward to seeing you the next time. Here's the Old Growler saying, "Have a good beer."